Before we begin today's tournament, we're going to tell you guys a little bit about Spool Heads and some of the track pieces that they have made that we will be using in this tournament. Spool Heads has a wonderful website where you can check out a wide variety of different track pieces that you can use to make your own tournaments right in the comfort of your very own home. They have a wide variety of options as mentioned, including pieces like this, which you will see at least a couple times in the tournament. But they have crossovers, straightaways, twists and turns, you name it, they've got it. And as cliche as it may sound, the possibilities are quite endless. So if you want to get your own track pieces, make your own tournaments, etc., feel free to check out Spool Heads. They have a website and a Facebook page. But for now, welcome to day 1 of the third custom mail-in tournament. Here is the first group that we've got. Who will start us off? AJ Buster, J-Bo, Johnny B, and AutoZone. And the tournament has begun. Staying relatively close together, but it looks like Johnny B was slightly in the lead for just a moment, but AutoZone quickly overtakes that lead. And now it looks like J-Bo is coming up close behind him. And don't worry, everyone will have a chance in each lane of the track. And AutoZone does have that lead currently. J-Bo is looking to close that gap. So far is actually doing it. But will he be able to close it enough? As they get into the last part of the track, AutoZone held on to that lead and finishes with a 17.24. That is the starting time to beat. A great start for AutoZone. Let's see if he can stay that way. But take a look at this. The way the track is designed, sometimes it'll be a little difficult to tell how close some of these racers are to each other until they get to that last incline before the final sprint. That ought to keep things very interesting until the very end, at least ideally. But now for race number 2, AutoZone has a slight bigger lead going out of the gate this time. J-Bo and Johnny B are relatively close together, but now they're trying to catch up to Auto. AJ Buster has a little bit of ground to make up right now. AutoZone has a clear-cut lead this time around. It's not as simple to catch up this time. And now going down the incline, down the final stretch, and they cross the finish line first yet again. Finishing now with a 17.53. And I believe everybody finished in the same position as they did in the first race. Let's double check that. Yes, they did. We've already got some consistency going. And now AutoZone is only one win away from automatically progressing to today's finals. And remember, as we get through each finals, the top 2 will progress to the next stage of the tournament itself. But for race number 3 now, AutoZone is actually being followed close behind by J-Bo, but that gap is actually widening going around that turn, and AutoZone would like to keep it that way, but J-Bo is not making it easy for them. And now they get into the final lane merger down the incline, and AutoZone takes a 3rd consecutive win, finishing even faster with a 17.36. Meanwhile, AJ Buster managed to finish in front of Johnny B this time. At this point, it may be difficult to move on for either of those two, but at least AJ Buster did not finish in last every time. In fact, in some cases, in previous tournaments, we had racers who never finished at all, so they're already doing better than some of the racers we've seen in recent history. But now for the 4th race, it looked like Auto was actually falling behind for just a moment, but something gave them a second wind and they gained a sudden burst of speed somehow, and now they have a decent-sized lead over everybody. Auto was looking to get the first sweep of the tournament in the very first group of the same tournament. This is not something you often see in these custom mail-ins, but it looks like Auto is going to be able to pull it off, and he does. Auto already has a sweep and is now in contention to be an undefeated racer. Meanwhile, AJ Buster and Johnny B went out with a DNF each. DNFs in general are painful, but it's especially so if it's the last race you appear in for the tournament. But it will be AutoZone and J-Bo moving on. Let's see who will join them in group number 2. And we have Abby Normal, NZ Racing, Giorgio, and Puff. Puff has become a very recognizable name in this tournament, and they've certainly earned it. Let's see how well they do in this tournament. They do start off with the lead. Giorgio was pretty much right next to them, and now NZ Racing is not making it easy for them either. It is a three-way race for the finish, with Puff currently holding on to the lead, but here comes Giorgio. They get into the lane merger, they end up right next to each other. Giorgio actually spins Puff around, and that results in Puff finishing in third. Meanwhile, Abby Normal comes up behind in fourth. And I believe that is the new fastest time we have so far. You will often see the speed record being broken several times near the beginning of the tournament while everyone is getting accustomed to the track. But it becomes much less common later on once everyone gets settled. But now for race number 2, Abby Normal is trailing behind a little bit. The other three are staying in well contention with each other. I believe Giorgio has a slight lead, but again, sometimes these angles can be deceiving. And now Puff is playing catch-up with NZ not too far behind them. They're actually spaced relatively evenly right now, but Giorgio has an excellent launch down that hill, crossing the finish line without any hassle, finishing this time with a 15.63. And I believe that is 2 consecutive victories for Giorgio. One more, and they will take spot number 3 in today's videos that will move on to the grand finals. And we have 1 race left. Actually, no, we have 2. Puff starts off with the lead, but Giorgio is slowly overtaking them. And now Giorgio, out of nowhere, has a decent-sized lead, except here comes Puff now, looking to close that gap, and NZ is doing the same. Giorgio is a fierce competitor, and they are not making it easy for Puff and NZ. Puff is trying anything they can to close that gap, they just cannot do it. And Giorgio takes a 3rd win. They are automatically progressing to the next stage of this tournament, at least in the finals today. I gotta be careful with my wording, because there's the finals in each video, then there's the grand finals, then the ultimate finals. But now we have 1 race left, and Giorgio is already taking spot number 1 out of this group. Spot number 2 is likely to be either Puff or NZ, and with the way Puff finished in 2nd this time around, it definitely helps them a little bit. And now they actually have a good lead for the moment, but here comes Giorgio looking to close that gap immediately, and it looks like they're doing that for the most part, but it looks like they will not catch up to Puff, and Giorgio will not get a sweep. But all 4 racers finished all 4 times, and it looks like it will probably be Puff moving on alongside Giorgio. In fact, looking at those points, I'm pretty sure. Yes, Puff managed to sneak his way in to today's finals alongside Giorgio. And within this group now, only one of them, that being AutoZone, is the only one with a sweep right now, and they would ideally love to stay undefeated, but based on the speed of some of these vehicles, that could prove to be difficult. Now these 4 are staying a little bit closer together overall, but Puff and Giorgio continue their rivalry as they stay close together. As they get into that lane merger, they divide up again. And who got a better result out of that turn? It looks like Giorgio got a slight edge over Puff. And they are heading towards the finish, and they both bump off the walls. Puff tried to spin Giorgio out of the way, but I don't think it was enough. No, it was not. Giorgio managed to grab that first win still. And that also means we will not have an undefeated racer out of today's video. But we did manage to get a sweep in the very first group. That is still very impressive. As we start the 2nd race, Giorgio gains an early lead. But sometimes it's not always easy to hold on to it. And Puff is now sharing the same split lane as them, but is slowly actually falling behind there a little bit. Giorgio, meanwhile, keeps getting faster and faster, it looks like. And now going into the final sprint, heading towards the finish line, a beautiful execution going down that hill, barely touching the walls at all, and they grab another win. Giorgio is likely motivated by the fact that they were denied a sweep, so now they're looking to try it again here. And whoever finishes in the top 2 in this group will move on to the grand finals. And so far, it's looking pretty good for Giorgio and Puff. Otto and Jabo have some work to do. Otto is actually staying not too far behind Puff there, but it doesn't seem like they are able to maintain that speed for very long before Puff pulls away. But right now, the one pulling away is Giorgio, as they have a much bigger lead than they did before. No contention whatsoever. And look how good they control themselves as they go into the straightaway. That allows them to grab a third win, while Puff finishes in second. And now we have one race left. It is going to be very difficult for Puff not to move on at this point. It's not impossible, but it is a little bit harder. It looks like, yeah, Giorgio is automatically moving on. Let's see who will join him. The fourth race begins. Giorgio does have that lead, trying to get the sweep this time around, as they were denied that in the previous group. But here comes Puff and even Otto now. They do need a good burst of speed, otherwise it is very hard to catch up to Giorgio once they have that lead. And they managed to get the sweep, I think. Puff made a valiant effort near the very end. And if they'd done it just a second sooner, they might have been able to pull it off, but nope. We have another sweep this time, now by Giorgio. And it looks like it'll be Giorgio and Puff progressing to the grand finals after today's video. 2 of the slots are now filled and many more to go. Thank you all so much for watching. See you for day number 2.